man, fuck Tom Brady. You know what I'm saying? fuck whoever, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you heard some of the English speaking right now. We've been talking football kind of all day. We're closing you out today, talking a little bit about defense. We already spoke outside a little bit. Obviously, tomorrow we talk about all the fans, but all the people here are kind of football heads, so we can dive a little deeper. But first of all, kind of want to talk about how you actually came into the NFL, right? Until 2009, you played at Texas A&M, had a good college career, but then only came into the NFL as an undrafted free agent, and then had definitely one of the better careers than most NFL players. The average career obviously is 3 years in the league. You played for 11, made 3 Pro Bowls, won a Super Bowl with the Seahawks, were one of the most predominant defenses, still a Legion of the Boom. Everybody still talks about this. So tell us a little bit about your way, kind of coming a little bit as an underdog in the NFL and having this kind of type of career.
Yeah, I think when I did get drafted, it was very, challenging. I think that's the thing is like you work your whole life to be in a position, and then you don't get the call, and you have a choice. Either you turn back around or you continue to move forward. It's like you see a wall or you turn that wall into a bridge. And I think for me it was like, I can not do this anymore or go. And I think for me I was just like looking at it, and I just put my head down and just worked really hard. I just thought about every day. I think not getting drafted just motivated me more and more and more and more. And I just would do the things that other people wouldn't do. They wouldn't want to play. They want to play defensive end. The coach would be like, can somebody play D-tackle? I'm like, it's me. And I think it's like a key into life is like you always have to like do the things that other people are willing to do when you're trying to grow in your position. And I think that's one of the most humblest things that you have to be able to constantly create yourself, is like create a mind state of disruption all the time.
Yeah, but then, and even then, you made it to the NFL, right? 2009, you got your first stint with the Seahawks, and then you end up even getting released for some guy that played in the league for 2 years just because they needed an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
And then you have another time where you shocked your system a little bit, but then the Bucs picked you up. So tell us a little bit about that transition, kind of them being released.
Well, I think for me it was like you have to get into a state of your mind. It's like it's two things. It's with the NFL. It's like you can choose violence, or violence can be done to you. And I think for me, I was like, you know what? I'm going to be the most violent player I can possibly be. And I think you have to make a decision that you're okay with you're okay with being injured. You're okay with like that every play could be your last play. And I think once that kind of was like the switch that changed to me, then that's kind of what pushed me forward. It was like, there's some places you go out there, you're like, I don't want to know if I want to hit somebody or you want to do this. And it's like, then one day you just wake up and you're like, I don't care. Like, whoever's out there, they're getting it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was my mom, my grandmother, whoever is lining up against me today, I'm willing to go further than they're willing to go on every single play. And that's kind of the mindset that I had when I started to really level up in my game. It was like, man, if I break my neck, that's just a part of it. If I break my arm, break my foot, it's better than not being a star. It's better. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was what's the worst thing? That's the worst thing. I think that's kind of, it's a terrible thing to preach to people, but that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, but you almost have to have that because it could potentially happen. And if you have that fear and you let that slow you down, you almost have to give up on that fear.
And then one day fear comes back. The fear comes back when you start to have family and kids and stuff, and then the fear, a fear starts to come into you about what's the potential. But before, when you don't have kids, the fear just disappears.
Nothing matters, right?
It's like nothing matters. It's like there's a task that needs to be done, and I need to. There's a special skill like he says in Taken. You have my daughter, and I have a special skill, and you'll see me later. I think that's kind of at the beginning. You have that process of thinking about the game very much so.
So then you had 4 successful years with the Bucs, and then your second stint came back to the Seahawks. Obviously, right away, championship team. You came back to the locker room, a lot of new faces, right? A new quarterback that wasn't there 4 years before when you were there. A lot of young guys, but obviously the heart of that team was the defense. Did you know right away when you came back to that team?
I knew. I had been playing with Temple for a while. I think they didn't appreciate what I kind of brought to the thing. I remember very vividly. There was a game we played against the St. Louis Rams before they were the LA Rams. I was going to get an MRI for the team or whatever, and the person who was driving me, we got in a wreck. You know, the car got in a wreck, and so I was injured, and I was like, man, how did I get in a wreck with the thing? So I'm in the hot tub, like thinking, I'm like, man, you know what? I'm not gonna play. And then like the GM came in there, and he was like, I was in there with everybody. I don't know, it was like some mafia type stuff. He like snapped it, and he was like, everybody leave, but Michael, you stay. He was like, oh, we can't win the game if you don't play.
That's like a mob sauna.
Yeah, it was. It was like the Russian mob, you know what I'm saying? And he was like, we need you to play. And I was like, nah, I'm injured or whatever. And then I ended up playing, which was stupid. Honestly, you just got in this car wreck and then you're out there playing. And I remember one play I like ran against, what's his name? Steven, what's his name? Steven for the, I can't think of his name right now.
Jackson.
Steven Jackson. It's like this one play, I hit him.
Experts here, no.
Yeah, Steven Jackson. I hit Steven Jackson so hard on one play, and I was like, that could have been it right there. And it was at the end of the season, and I was supposed to be franchised. It came to me before I was a first round tender pick. Usually when you're a first round tender, you always get franchised.
Okay.
And so it was time for me to get franchised, and it was like, oh, you got injured.
What?
It was like, you got injured, and it was like, well, we want to pay you like a little bit under the franchise thing. So usually the franchise, this time we'll pay you just a little bit under because we don't know if you're going to be injured through the season. And so I was so disrespected, and I was like, oh man. So I went down to Miami, and I've always kept in touch with Dan Quinn, and then when Dan Quinn called me, him and Pete Carroll, they were like, you one of the missing pieces that we need. If we could get you to come into our team as an inside rusher, you would change the whole defense for us. And I was like, I don't know. I really always liked Seattle, and I was like, I don't know, man. So then when I thought about it, my wife was like, you should go up there. So I went up there, and I was like, you know what, I'll sign with them just because he was like, you're a missing piece. If we get you on this defense, I promise you we'll win the Super Bowl. We have every other thing. We just don't have any inside rushers. And so I was like, okay, cool. And then that's how it really happened. I think I gelled. The thing I loved about that team was competition. I think anybody that's coaching right now, you have to breathe and live competition. You have to always make your team super competitive in every single thing. You have to make them, if it's about who can get the first coffee in the morning or who can throw this trick, just about competition. Like having that as something in your organization, like everything you do, is because once you have that competition, you start to breed a certain level of competitiveness that your team, there's a level that continues to raise. You know, we were so competitive on our team. Like we competed at every single thing. So by the time we got into the games, it was very simple because our practices were so competitive that Coach Carroll basically had to come and say like, yo, like some of y'all need to slow down. Like, you know, like chill out. Like it's getting too far because guys are so competitive. Like
it's usually the opposite of the coach. Always complaining, guys, we got to be more physical, right?
Yeah.
You got to do a little bit more. Come on. We're practicing in pads, let's go.
And coach like, Mike, we gotta run a play. You know, we gotta be able to run one play today. Because it's like, nah, you're not running any plays today. You know what I mean? Like that's how we thought, and that's how competitive you have to be sometimes. And I feel like when I got to Seattle, I finally met my brothers that were competitive as like I was, and it just kind of like gelled very well.
Yeah, so you come to a team like Richard Sherman, Bobby Wagner, right, Ken Chancellor. They were all there before you, so you had to fit in that culture, but you already had that intrinsically in you.
Yeah, I was an underdog. I always was competitive. That's just how I grew up. I grew up as a competitive person. You didn't always have a lot of food, but you had to eat first. You know what I'm saying? Like it was just competitive.
And you have a brother. I played with your brother Martellus at the Giants for a few years, and like just growing up with another brother who looks like you, has your size. And if you don't have that much food on the table, like you're actually going to fight for it.
You know, I grew up, like I'm from Louisiana, so my grandfather was a farmer. Both my grandfathers were farmers and roofers and welders. So in the summertime, all we did was work. You know what I'm saying? Like we would, you know, plow the fields, pick everything in whatever we were eating that day, slop the hogs, do what we had to do with the cows, grab the hay, do whatever we had to do for that. It was like I remember the first time I came back to Louisiana and I had been living in Texas for a minute and I had to go stay the summer. And I was like, you know, I'm not gonna do anything. It was time to eat. And then when we got ready to eat, my grandfather flipped my plate over and was like, if you don't work, you don't eat. I was like, damn, this is some trauma shit. You know what I'm saying? This is some, I want to go see a counselor one day, but he was just saying like,
Lawrence, you might need her after this one. He's a sports psychologist, just in case.
But my grandfather was just saying like, look, we always work all day in the field, getting the collard greens, getting the sweet potatoes, getting everything your grandmother's gonna cook today, and you didn't do any of it, and you expected to eat? No. And I think from then on, that really put me into the perspective is like, that's just how things are. Like, you gotta work. You know, my kids get mad at me because I'm just like, it's 6 o'clock. Why are y'all sleeping? You know, because that's how it always was. So it was dope.
But so you come in this team, and all these guys have the same mindset, right? They already are like you. So is Coach Carroll P like channeling this energy, or is he trying to hold it? You know, how does
Coach Carroll is a psychologist,
yeah.
So obviously he studies psychology and all these different things. He's always bringing in people who have done extraordinary things, or maybe that aren't sports. It's somebody like David Goggins. Like, I'm not agreeing with David Goggins. You know, shitting on yourself because you want to finish the race. That's a lot. You know what I'm saying? But that's the kind of stuff that David Goggins preaches, and like. But overall, he would bring in all these different types of people that were, you know, that did the most hard things that needed other people. It could be people who were that did submarines. It could be somebody who was a part of a flying group. It could be somebody, astronauts. It could be a lady writing a book on grit. He just always brought in people who were about finding and defining the things that humans needed to have success in, not as individuals, but how could you accomplish something as a group. And I think that's what his main thing was. Like, you have these great individuals, but how do you get a group of men to believe in one thing, be singular focused, put all things aside, and go out there and accomplish a mission? And whatever that is, that's what his main thing was. It's like, he spent all his time doing that. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, you guys took it too far. Now bring it back. Remember that it's not about if you're better than that guy. It's really about, can you win? And then when you do that, that continues to change the way you see the game. And there may be a play that, when you grow up like that, in a system like that, it's like, okay, the coach calls this play. I really would like the ball in this play. But I know that if I do my job, the ultimate thing of winning is really the most important thing. And I think that's really the fundamental thing of success in having a great team and organization, is that how do you get people to do their job consistently at a high level without ego? The depth of the ego allows the spirit to grow. And I think that's really where we came in and started to really think about that kind of stuff.
So did you, when you started training camp, right? You're in the team, you look around, you have some guys, you just know physically we're some dogs on this team. You always know, like, okay, this is a good team. It's like, this is maybe a pretty shitty team. Like, you knew that personality-wise, talent-wise, you had a good team. But did you know right away in training camp you had a championship team? Or does that confidence build kind of all during the season when you really start believing in yourself?
Well, I think every team has a physical team. Every player in the NFL is a physical specimen at some level. To even be invited to the level of getting to the camp, the amount of people who play high school football, the amount of people who play college football, to even get invited to the camp, you are a special human. But what I think that everybody is the mindset. It's like, how far can this person go? How much does winning mean to them? I think that's really what it comes down to, building a great team and a great organization. And that's what I saw. I've been on teams with great talent. You know, this is the best running back, this is the biggest lineman, he's the fastest guy, this guy's dead. But there's moments where you see the mental weakness in him, when there's crucial times when things have to be done a certain way. I think that's the difference of what I started to see on this team, was that, like, there was moments where, you know, coach was like, oh, you gotta hold this guy on this play, and the guy wouldn't even budge. Okay, you know what I mean? That's like, wow, this guy's really thinking about the success of the organization and the success of his teammates. That was really the difference. It really wasn't the talent, it was the mindset. It was that every day I went out there and I realized that everybody that I played with was thinking the same thing that I was thinking. Like, it wasn't about the money, it wasn't about this. It really, and at one point it did become about the money. About 3 years into it, then we became like prima donnas. Everybody was on commercials, and then it was like,
but you have a good team.
Yeah, but at the beginning, the first 3 years, it was only about winning. It was only about dominating. It was only about being the best defense possible. That's really what it came down to every week.
So we're talking about the best defense possible. You
are. Yeah, we are the best.
But you have a bunch of alphas on this team, right? Because sometimes when you build a team, you think you have to have role players, you have to have some guys that play a position, some other guys, you want some leadership on this team, but sometimes too many leaders could also be a competitive imbalance. How did you guys channel that?
Well, the thing is, there's a level, and if a guy's not reaching that level, he already knows he's not getting on the field. Because at the end of the day, as a starter, you don't want to let a guy who's not going to keep the level the same. But when you have guys behind you that's so competitive and they go into the game, and you know there's no drop off, that's really what it comes down to. Because it's like, being an alpha male isn't about, being toxic masculinity or something. I don't know, people say that.
Raw stuff.
It's like the samurai who doesn't draw his sword. That's truly what it's about. It's like we have those guys that are so detailed and want to win that everybody rises to a certain level. There's this level, and then there's like some guys that are camp chancellor, like where they're just like extraordinary, and you just like, I don't know, is this guy even human? Then it's like the guys that just stay at that level of like they beat our team and they're not as good because it's like on this team we wouldn't let them do the things that they were doing. If they drank, we'd be like, hey, you can't drink today. You know what I'm saying? Like, put that shit down. You know what I'm saying? Like, it would be that kind of mindset where we were like, there's a level that we're doing, and if you're not doing that, we'll just get rid of you ourselves because we got that kind of power,
But we all, like I said, we play the most physical sport, team sport, I think there is, and we all want to be tough. And like I said, sometimes the stuff still hurts, right? Even like we hit other people, it still hurts us too. You have guys the name, the Legion of the Boom, didn't come for no reason. Did that physicality, was that just the name of the how guys are made up, like you, like the other guys, or was that something you guys also were able to develop over time through practice, or?
I don't know. I think sometimes I feel bad because my pain tolerance is a lot different, and so I'm like, I got all daughters, and I'm having to be like, okay, Michael, this is not a Super Bowl. She can cry. She just fell. You know what I'm saying? Like I have to do that to myself because it's like I'm so every week I had to get a shot at my toe, my big toe, because I couldn't. Half the time, if the doctor did it wrong, my foot would be numb for 2 quarters. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't really, at this point, it's kind of like we just made a decision that we were just going to be more physical to the next person in front of us. It's like, it's something we can choose. And it was like, violence seems very easy to do. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, at that point, for me, it was just like, I didn't wear shoulder pads. I didn't care. I used to didn't wear gloves. I just grew up in a different era. So it's
your shoulder pads even were like paper shoulder pads.
Yeah.
I've never seen anybody play with thin shoulder pads like you did. Really, it was like, it looks like you wear just a jersey sometimes.
Yeah, I feel like that's how it was for me. I feel like we just were more physical than the other guys. I think it was just like I said. I think we made a decision that we were going to choose the one. We were going to be more dominant than the person in front of us. We were going to be more violent than they were. And then at some point, 2 people would meet, and one person would choose to go the other way. And every once in a while, you run into a guy that would keep pushing it. Like the 49ers, it's like, that was a team that was just as physical as us. Like, that was a hard game. Carolina Panthers was always a hard game. It's like, we would play them again, and it was like, damn, we got to play them again. We know that we're going to see the Carolina Panthers again. That's a very physical team. We have to play the 49ers 3 times, you know what I'm saying? Like, you play them 2 times in the season, and then you got to play them in the playoffs again. They had Justin Smith, they had Patrick Willis, NaVorro Bowman, Alden Smith, Deshaun Ghostin, all these Carlos Rogers. Like, this team was stacked with some of the best players you could possibly.
And Colin Kaepernick days.
Yeah, and
he's
then
like
the offensive
3.5 times in one game.
Yeah, then the offensive line, Mikey and Potty, all these guys. So it's like they had a stacked team too. And it's like at some point, that physicality, we had to keep going it. And I think that's really what it comes down to. It's really just making your mindset up with saying like, I don't care, this person is non-existent. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then you just do that a lot of times during the game, and it works out well.
Yeah, the result is usually in your favor most of the time.
Yeah, I can look at somebody and be like,
You don't have it?
You can look at somebody's eyes and be like, this, they don't, like, at some point in the game, this person, if they're worried about their shoes, if they're worried about their jersey, if they're worried about too many other things, I can say that at some point, they're going to be worried about the wrong thing, you know what I mean? And I think that's the truth. Tom Brady used to tell me all the time, it's like, He's like, I like to shake guys' hand. I know if guys ask me for my jersey, then they're not focused. They worried about my greatness, not really worried about like the winning of the game. We like, man, fuck Tom Brady. You know what I'm saying? fuck whoever. You know what I'm saying? Like today, it's like I don't want their jerseys. I don't want to know their kids. I don't want to know their wife. I just want to destroy this person. And like, if he gets injured, so be it. You know what I'm saying? That's just. I mean,
it sounds kind of crazy, but on the football field, I mean, I had that feeling before that you almost don't care if you would kill the person in front of you.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It sounds.
I ain't saying that, but I don't know. I understand.
I feel weird saying this right now because I think I haven't said that in public either. But you gotta run this out of me. Oh, I'm backed up. Yeah, but it's true. Like
it's true. It's like
you wouldn't care whatever happens. You probably feel bad after the game, like oh shit.
No, you don't feel bad. You just be like, damn.
They are.
You ran against me. What's gonna happen? It's like, of course, it was gonna happen.
So let's look at Super Bowl 48, right? You guys #1 ranked defense.
Exactly. We went into that thing like.
And you were underdogs.
Peyton Manning.
But you were actually disrespected. You guys were the underdogs in that game. And usually #1 ranked defense is usually always the favorite to win the Super Bowl.
It's because the offense was just okay.
Yeah, and you had Peyton Manning on the other side, and everybody was like,
yeah. But I already knew we went into that game. That was another game that I went into and was like, yeah, I feel bad for these guys.
But you had it in your mind, like not only obviously you kind of channel, trying to visualize we're going to win, but you're going to dominate.
This is what I knew. We went to the Giants practice facility because every team has to go to another team's facility to practice. We walked into the defensive room, and I saw everything that the Giants thought was good. And I looked
you probably were in the defensive line room I was sitting on, because that was when I was with the Giants back then. And then you had like Justin Tucker in that room, the way they beat Tom Brady and the Patriots. You were similar to Justin Tucker, Jason Pierre-Paul, more of a defensive end that comes in as a 3 technique, as a pass rusher, right? Kind of dominate from the middle, mismatches.
No, but I went there and I was like, their goals are, we would never go into a game saying that giving up 100 yards was okay. If we gave up 100 yards, we'd be so mad at each other, like, how did that happen? The quarterback got 150 yards, how did that happen? Like, we were like, looking at what they call success was so...
Yeah, I think our guys was like, keep them under 100 yards rushing, keep them under 250 or 150 passing, whatever.
250 passing.
Yeah. Damn.
That's a lot of passing.
It is a lot of passing. You all both, you have 350 yards on
Exactly. Yeah. What? You want them to get 350 yards and that's okay?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
You want to give up 14 points? 0 is the answer. 0 points. They get nothing. We will win 0-3.
Yes.
It won't be our fault.
Yeah, it's true.
We'll give y'all every chance. Yeah. It won't be our fault.
That's the mindset, though.
Yeah, they're not going to get any points. Yeah. They're not going to get any yards. I know on my side, they're not getting any yards. How do you feel on your side? They're not getting yards on my side. How do you feel back there, Cam, if you jump in the air and we put them in the hospital? What do you think, Bob? No. So it's like everybody is saying, no, that's not right. And so I knew once we had that mindset, walking into the room, I already knew that it was not going to be a fair game because they had ran into people that think like that. Like, that's normal. Like, that was normal goals. Like, our thing was ruthless and relentless. Like, that was it. We were going to be the most relentless team and the most ruthless defense every time we stepped on the field. So with that type of mindset, you get a group of people to think like that, you got a bad situation happening.
I mean, it shows you like how dominant defense was too, even in that game. I mean, not only holding it to only 8 points, but like Malcolm Smith's got the Super Bowl MVP, right? Finally, a defensive play that hasn't happened in a minute either. It just shows how you guys are made up. Like, even in a position like his name isn't as big as some of the other names on the defense, but he was the one that won the.
Well, he had made a lot of plays all season. I think Michael Smith was an underdog because there was a lot of great players on that team, and he just kind of always was the guy who would make a big play. He'd be like, okay, yeah, he coming up, and he just always been a big play guy. So I was happy for him because I feel like all season, even that tip throw, like, Richard Sherman got a lot of credit for it, but it was really Michael Smith who caught the ball. You know what I'm saying? So, like, all those crucial moments, mentally he was ready for his time. I think that's the biggest thing I'll think about as a coach, if anybody's coaches in here.
That's what I was going to ask you something, because they are all these people have something actually to do with American football. They're coaches or players or an organization. Yeah.
I think it's really about making sure that that everybody knows that it's going to be their time at some point of the game. Because the only healthy football team is when you're in OTAs. After that, everybody's injured. And you have to choose if you can play through the injury or you can continue to go, but you have to be ready that at any moment when your time is called, you're ready to jump in the game and have and be highly successful. I think if you could get everybody in the team to practice like they're the starter, practice like they're going to be in the game, then when it's their turn, it won't be any drop-off. But I think too many times teams allow guys who are backups to fuck around, in the back with eating sunflower seeds, not paying attention, and then all of a sudden there's a big play, the guy who was a starter gets hurt, and now this guy's in the game, he doesn't know what to do, he doesn't even know any of the defense, he doesn't know what's happening, and on Sunday, unfortunately, he gets tore up in front of 8 million people, and everybody's tweeting him and making TikToks about how bad this guy is, and it's like, well, that's also a part of the organization's fault because they allowed that behavior to continue. It becomes like gangrene in a lot of ways.
So do you think the mindset from an organization, does that come bottom up or top down, right? Like a lot of times you hear it starts with the ownership, then the head coach, and then position coach, and then it triggers the players. So do you actually think the players most of the time?
I think it starts with the coach. I think the coach has to have his philosophy. I think that philosophy of any organization, whether it's Mercedes or Coke or Google or Apple, like Apple's successful because Steve Jobs had a certain way of thinking, something he wouldn't allow anybody to do, and that trickled down to everybody in the way that they think. I think it has to be a certain consciousness that has to switch on, and people have to be able to execute the things that you believe in at every single level, and that continues to grow. Any great organization, anybody you ever read about, any great general, or any great leader, like, it is so much about having a system that you think and that you live by. What happens in a lot of organizations or a lot of things is that the leader says all these things, but he doesn't live by it. I think once you create something and you really live it, like Steve Jobs lived Apple. He literally lived Apple so much that even today, that even when Johnny Ives talks about Apple, he talks about how Steve did so many things, and that became the way that we think of Mark Zuckerberg, whoever it is, the people that bring Fortune 500 companies or bring great organizations or teams together is because the person who's the leader has a certain way of thinking about it. It's like they've been thinking about this thing their whole life, and they want to see it in a physical form. It's like you have this mental thing. It's like if you make an object and then that object comes to life, it's like, how does that object operate? I think when you think about organization, it's like the people become the living organisms of the way that you think. And I think having a consistent way of speaking, having terms and terminology around the building, having everything so specific that if a person doesn't fall into that way of thinking, you got to move on from them. Because sometimes as a coach or a player, you fall in love with a person's personality, but they don't fit into the system in the way that you think about it. And as a business person, they can be terrible. It's like, man, I love Laura, but damn, Laura's always late. She stops at Starbucks when she's late to the meeting, and you love her, but damn, can you get to the meeting on time? It's like, you gotta cut them. And I think that's the hardest part about it, is because if you don't do that, it changes. And I say that's the greatest thing about Pete Carroll that I love, is that Pete set a template that everybody can follow. And there's a repeat of the way that he thinks. And the way that he thinks, he was able to change the way that maybe Marshawn was always a good player, right? But maybe Marshawn didn't trust the person that was leading him. And he was able to change Marshawn's way of thinking, that he became, now I wouldn't say a follower, but you have to be a great follower to be a great leader, because you have to be able to understand what the goals are and be able to lead the people in any moments. I think that's what Coach Carroll was really good at. It's like he knew when to step in and he knew when to step back. He knew when to allow the leaders to be the leaders and when he had to step in to maybe facilitate something. And maybe there's sometimes he would call you into his office and do some of that sneaky shit, like, Michael, maybe you shouldn't do that.
Like what?
Jumping outside, I don't care if you get off the ball, but I'm just saying 10 is a lot, you know what I'm saying? Can we get it to 5? I'm like, okay, I can do 5, coach. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you found ways.
You little leeway, like, I'm not trying to get the competitive advantage, but there's,
it's coming to fine line when you're hurting us. It's like, I know you want to be great, but if that greatness gets in front of our dreams as an organization, then I have to step in and tell you that maybe what you're doing, you need to change and do that. And as a player, you got to be able to accept that sometimes. And the moment you can't accept that anymore is the moment that you got to be scared, right? That's when you become less of yourself,
You learned so many life lessons from the sport and also from coaches and Pete Carroll, what you said. Is there anything that even in an earlier time in your sport, when because all these people are coaching amateurs most of the time, right? Everybody does this. Nobody really is making money in Germany from American football. So the motivation has to be, it's not financial, it's not the glory, nobody's playing the big games, it's totally the love of the game.
I love football.
Yeah.
I literally love football. I grew up watching football. I love the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were my favorite team growing up. I loved everything about football. I love the way that the players would come off the field and represent something else. I love the Muhammad Ali. I love the opportunity to compete at a high level and also be a custodian of the culture. I think when I grew up watching football, I loved on Sundays when you would see a group of people come together and have one organization. I love that feeling about football to this day. I mean, I don't have to be in Germany. I've got so many things to do, right?
Yeah.
And it's like I flew.
And you came from Hawaii.
I
This
came
is literally the
from
other side of the
Hawaii.
world.
I came because I love the Seahawks. I love what they represent. I love the people that I get an opportunity to work with outside of the game. Becca, Mark, all the people that I've become friends with after I played the game. I love what they represent. So the best way for me to give back is to find ways to help impact the game of football, because I think there's so many life lessons that football allows us to do and work together and become a system. Like after I finished sports, I went to school for design. I went to architecture school. I went to design school. There were so many things that I learned in football that made design a lot easier. Like this idea about collaboration, this idea of working on teams, this discipline, all these different things that became so much about a system way of thinking about culture. There's parts to the whole, and those things became about so much about this. I think football to me has so many great things. It really requires you to die of oneself to become bigger for something bigger than yourself. It's like on Sundays, it's like you gotta choose to be, you gotta play through injury, you gotta play through what's going on in your family, like your parents could be sick, your mother, your wife can have birth, you can have all these problems, but on Sunday you gotta find a way to put them aside because you have to work with somebody else, this idea that somebody else is dependent on you. And if you don't like that idea that a team coming together, that makes it really hard. But I think that's the biggest thing about amateur. I love working with young players or having the opportunity because there's so many things that we can take as players and implement those things into our lives every single day. And it helps us continue to be great leaders in the community. Like there's so many things that people only see on the football field, but like when you think about being a legend or being part of your community, like you can impact the world a lot longer, a lot stronger by learning these kind of things that you learn in the game and the platform that you give it. So I think that's really the best thing about football is that you can be taught a skill and you can be taught how to work as a team and collaborate. If you look at the world, what's the biggest thing that's wrong with the world is that people can't collaborate. People don't respect other people's way of thinking. People don't love other people for their existence. It's like those things. In sports, you don't have to do that. In sports, somebody could be from another culture, they could be from another gender, they could be all these other things, but you have to respect them because you need them. And I think even when you think about humanity, we need every single person to really have a successful planet. There's no person greater than the next. It's like everybody's a part of the greater good. And when we start to realize that in the most crucial moments when there's a hurricane that kills 100 people, you see everybody coming together, and what happens? Things get fixed. So it's like, that's what I love about football. It's like that opportunity to bring people together culturally that usually don't talk, and they have an opportunity to find common ground is something that they both love.
Beautiful way to end this interview, I would say. Yeah, thank you very much for your wise words, all the insight. Thanks for coming all the way from Hawaii here, Michael. We're going to have you again tomorrow on the stage. Not with all active football people, but we have a bunch of fans tomorrow too. We have a bigger crowd. I know you're not going to be nervous at all.
Yeah, I'll be nervous now.
And we have another fun day. Thanks for coming all the way here from Hawaii,
No problem.
and I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.